Recording now.
Thank you very much, sir. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? All good? Cool. So we've got a few bits on the agenda for today. So reviewing the actions from last week, reviewing the outstanding PRs, any update on charters for working groups, the holiday break, which is a new thing for us to decide now that we're all here, and any other business. So probably makes sense to start with reviewing the actions from last week. So Chris and David, did your meeting happen?
It did.
Oh.
Yeah, initial conversation. We've actually set up a recurring meeting to talk about those things, both CI budget and some tooling. Although we might pull in Ruben to chat about tooling fairly soon.
Cool, excellent.
Yeah, we're tentatively leaning towards just figuring out how to give each working group a pile of CI, recommended CI budgeting and like a small concourse and so on, and seeing how much people want to take advantage of that. I don't know. I know it's a bunch of work to move pipelines too. So people may or may not actually want to do it, but it's nice that it's available as an option. And I think some of the working groups will move some of their newer stuff to it.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense.
When you say, sorry, one question. When you say give them a concourse, does that mean like a managed concourse?
It means sort of approval to run a concourse per working group that is reasonably small for one measure or another. Tim was running some numbers on one for Kate's group, and he's like, I think we can run a concourse for $3,000 a year or something like that. We're like, all right, this is worth doing, but it would be like a small number of workers, like a 2 or 3 worker, very cost optimized concourse. I don't know. I haven't run the Kubernetes numbers, but in theory we could also do it on Kate's, and I haven't checked whether that's actually cheaper or not. But it's basically run a small concourse, use it for the whole working group. And operate it yourself is sort of the model we're looking for, which isn't great, but it's better than there's nothing and you're screwed.
Yeah, that's definitely not a good option. Okay, so I did do the updates to the RFC PR to reflect the directory structure with links for other locations, as was discussed last week. Eric's had a look at that, but we'll move down to that in the PR review section. And then Stephan.
I commented on the PR,
yep,
but there was no further update. So
there's no action on it.
I'm also fine with removing my request for change. No problem.
I think that's a reasonable request to go in there because it's what we discussed at the meeting. So I guess it might be worth just giving a nudge to see about getting that update in. But yeah, I'll leave that in your hands to decide on whether to nudge it along or leave it another week or so.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of reviewing the outstanding PRs, the first one I've got on the list is the RFC PR, which I will just post in chat for everyone to make life easy. So I've gone through and I've put in clarifications for all the raised points in there. It's kind of really one to have another read through, I think, and just make sure that everything's covered off. Because, of course, I've made most of these changes whilst it's been sleeping time in the US. So feel free to take, the next couple of days to have a look through. But hopefully that irons everything out and we can get that one merged in.
Yeah, I did have an outstanding question about the template.
Yep.
There are those Cloud Foundry community pull request and issue lines.
Yes.
I still wasn't clear on what those were supposed to represent.
The metadata section at the top. So the thinking with that one is that actually we can use that sort of further down the line for any kind of automation that we wanted to run on it. So we could run scripts against this to perform particular actions, i.e. automatically populating them, or it could hook into other CI/CD pipelines to feed it through to people's issues boards. We've got some flexibility with that one. I guess, yeah, I probably need to actually discuss that within the process itself. So I will add that in then in that case.
Okay, yeah. If there's like an initial picture of what that automation would look like, I think that would help. Okay. And otherwise, maybe we don't need it right now, and that could be a subsequent refinement of the process. Is this something that the build packs RFC repo does automatically? I'm looking up and I see that they have similar things.
I'll let Jan step in here.
I think they do. Like I don't have it clearly on my mind, but I think it does provide value if there's like implementation pull requests and issues that link to this is what we decided and this is where it gets actually implemented. That makes sense. Although it is of course something that you have to maintain. Like I mean, but I think it makes sense if you read an RFC and you can directly go into that's one of the results of this RFC and find these places.
Oh, so that would be like once the RFC is accepted, then this is where the actual work to carry something out is happening. Is that the idea?
That's at least how I think understood what Lee was having them in. Like I had that question before, right? What are these? Even what does it mean?
Yeah.
Was one of my questions. So I can quickly look at what BuildPags is doing.
Okay.
Like a CVE number, right? It's like a unique identifier that then you can search for and or whatever.
Right, but this would be like a forward-looking reference to like, we said we were going to do this thing, but now we actually need to do some work, and here's where that work is happening.
Yeah, it gives you a way of sort of knitting it together.
Okay, right.
It's often blank. Like there are RFCs where the issue in Cloud Native Build Packs is blank. And nothing was added there. So I've just got into one of those. Let me just pick another one. Yeah, blank again. Let me pick a third one. And if this is blank again, then let's just not have the field. Yeah, blank again. Let's not have the field.
All right, I'll clobber that metadata field for now then in that case. That's an easy one to clobber.
Sounds like we're pretty close to approving, Lee. Sorry, I haven't paid enough attention to this one. I'll read it in a minute and I'll add my review, but I don't really care what the process is. I think you all have a lot more opinions about it. I'm happy to approve it unless I find a glaring problem.
Okay, cool.
I might do just some more copy editing on the text if I get a chance. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, I get a sense of the process, and it seems pretty straightforward and reasonable.
Okay, cool. So I will hack out the metadata and I'll take that as an action, and then I update with any of the copy tweaks as well. Oh
yeah, one other thing I wanted to make sure, like, well we've got everyone here for the numbering. Lee, I think the latest thing you said was you wanted, like, if someone was even starting to draft an RFC on a branch, then they should increment to the next available number in the RFC sequence, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my thinking on that.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking there's a little bit of, I guess you've got to move them to a separate location anyway, but if you're altering some other descriptive part of the title, you'd be doing that unless you, there's the potential for a race condition there, of course.
This is true.
So, I mean, I imagine if we hit that, we can resolve it manually through discussion to say, like, well, this other one has claimed this one.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I would consider to be sort of the small worry on there. It's relatively easily solved, I think, that one.
Yeah. I guess if there's, we might tell people like right when they submit the PR, maybe, hey, update those numbers to the latest sequence. As a reminder. That's probably the best point. That would have the smallest critical period impact, for a collision there. Because otherwise the using GitHub as the central keeper of the numerical sequence, just basing it on the auto-assigned issue or PR number is kind of attractive, but then somebody would have to update it after the submission to put the right one in. And then I suppose the right, actually probably the right number for the directory is the harder part if there is a directory, because then those are definitely going to collide.
Yeah, I guess so. Or do we say that the process is actually you open your draft and you stake your number claim at that point?
Yeah, I mean, then you could end up with gaps, which is probably fine anyway. Like you'll have gaps anyway if you close things later.
Yeah.
But I think you'll have gaps either way in the sequence, which people can deal with.
Or we use GUIDs.
No.
Really nice to remember also.
Which version of UUIDs, Ruben? Is it V1 or V4?
Let's have an RFC on that.
Okay, cool. So then there was add more Diego repos to the runtime working group, which is 177 that I've posted in here. So Stephan, I'll leave it up to you to decide whether to give a nudge along to Jeff this week or just leave it for another week. Entirely up to you on that one. But I think that's a perfectly reasonable change request to have made. So I don't see any issues there at all. So then the next one is add the missing component logging and metrics repos to the ARP working group. So this has been opened in the past week. So this just needs us to have a look through it and decide whether it's to merge in or not. And I don't think there's anything massively controversial in there at all, but I guess the main thing is just making sure that those repos are all publicly accessible and don't fall foul of should be in the private section at the bottom. So I think that's for us all to have a look through during this week. And the last one in the PRs list is moving volumedriver from runtime working group to services working group, which appears to be a pretty uncontroversial one. And it seems to be, all okay on there. So I'm quite happy to tick that one now. Okay, so those are all the open PRs that we've got at the moment.
Oh, that's not true. There's
is it
one.
Not? Which one have I missed?
The one I created during this call.
Oh,
that's not fair, Ruben. It goes to next.
I didn't know there was like a snapshot or like this thing. We didn't work live.
Oh, you know now.
It's when I get a chance to get a coffee and populate the list.
There's a list apart from the list on GitHub. There's another list.
There's the TOC meetings notes list, so I remember where I am. So which one have you created then for us today?
So I've been busy with that, like trying to automate the management of the org. And there's also a proposal for that, like how we want to create the teams. And then I think Jan had a suggestion of like maybe look at Knative and Kubernetes or something at those organizations. So I went down that route, did a bit of exploration and found that they actually have tools to do that type of sync. So there's more. They have like this whole CI/CD system built on top of Kubernetes, Prow or something that they use to have all sorts of webhooks and do fancy things. That's maybe nice for the future, but for now, they also have a standalone tool that they use in that bigger context, but we can also use that just with GitHub Actions. And that syncs a YAML file against all your, against your org. So you basically manage all your memberships, teams, everything with that. And I think that would be quite a useful thing because it at least gives us visibility and how bad or the shape we are currently in, and then we can like transition from that, right? We can just start creating pull requests against that file to get things into a better shape. So yeah, I don't know if it works yet, but I mean, I think we can make maybe have a discussion about more of like a principle discussion about this thing, and then we merge it, and then I can like fix it later, make sure that the permissions are right and everything. But the general idea will stay the same.
Okay. I mean, yeah, general idea seems like a sensible one to me. I can't see why not. And yeah, you've got the failing test before it's merged to test it against problem, but that's.
Yeah, and that's a permissions thing as well. So we need to create, there needs to be an account that has admin permissions. We need to use a token from that account or an app ID or something. So I will have to figure that one out, but I can work with Chris on that. And I assume we also want to do this for the incubator as well. Maybe. I mean, like it will just be another file in the same directory, but then we have the permissions for at least for both.
Yeah.
One side effect of this will be that, like, if we have other ways of onboarding people. I mean, at least within VMware, I think we have some of the admins or the old Pivotal admins that create users. So through the help now, I don't know, it's like an internal process. If they start creating people outside of this file, they will be they will be removed again.
That's okay.
It's one way to enforce a process.
Yes, so it should
be that way.
Communication thing. Yeah, it's more of a communication thing. We need to, tell people that this is going forward the process to onboard people. And the nice thing about that, I think, is that it's more self-service. People will be able to make their requests themselves through a pull request, but it will increase the load maybe on this TOC. I don't know if this is the right place. We could also create what the Kubernetes organization, they have like in the GitHub org, they have an org repo where they manage these types of configs. But I don't know, we could also maybe get there once or do that once it becomes a problem or something. I don't know.
Why would it increase the load on the TOC? Can't we load that off to the working groups? Like I think it probably should be the working group leads that can just do that, right? For their working group, like they know who should be approver. That's nothing that needs to go through the TOC, right?
No, so we probably need to set proper code owners or something in the repo. Also, the problem is it's one file, right? So it's one file, and so code owners can only be like per directory or per file, and this is a shared file basically.
Interesting. So how is Knative handling that then? Like, do they have a super admin?
I don't know. I haven't looked into the Knative usage, so I can look into that. But still, it's I mean, in the end, actually, everybody should go through. I mean, people will be members, right? So they need to be part of the org, I think. So they don't necessarily need like permission to merge pull requests, right? That's only the approvers. And so there will not be many changes there. It's just like adding new people to the org now and then. Yeah.
And I think our responsibility is going to be being really available during the transition, right? So we can like quickly fix problems that we missed. Because I think the steady state is going to be manageable, right?
Yeah.
And like TSC might have to sub in for working group leads in a pinch, right? Like we might all have to like help restore access during the transition.
But I mean, like the current file, the config there is based on a dump. So I did a dump a few days ago. So there shouldn't be a big diff once we start using this. Yeah.
Would we then remove the, let's say, committers from the working group descriptions? Because that's then double information, right?
I mean, currently the file is just the current state of things. So ideally, we like make a few steps or like separate pull requests to get this more in the shape that we want it to be, right? But first, we want to enable this process so that we don't get like new. We enforce this process, and then we start making it aligning it with what we have in the working group definitions. So we can have the team so if we agree on like the teams that we're going to create, the result of that would be we update this file and then we make it so basically.
So eventually, would this file become the source of truth for like team membership, or would it still just continue to reflect state that's set elsewhere?
No, this will be the canonical source for team membership.
Okay, and then automation would sync that to the GitHub
yes.
configuration. Okay.
Yeah. But there's more settings in there, like GitHub org things, and all of that comes from that single file.
Yeah, I'm scanning through the cloudfoundry.yaml.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apart from that file, the pull request is not like really substantial, but it was quite a lot of like just research trying to figure out how they do these things, and then but the end result should be pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think we should all have a nosy through that one then, and see if we've got any thoughts and add them to the PR. Okay, so unless anyone snuck any more PRs in the meantime, I think we should be all right to have a look at the working groups. So we've got Add Vulnerability Management Working Group. There's one, which I think the only thing that on this one is it just needs David to say yay after Paul's go ahead, and then it can be merged.
You're muted.
I know, I'm pulling it out.
Okay, cool. So that's a tiny one. Like, nothing to worry about in there. And the other one that's currently in flight is the Community Experience Working Group, which I imagine, Eric, you've not had a chance to have much of a look at because you're on holiday.
Yeah, I haven't done anything here since I've been gone. One thing that I was considering as I was thinking about it a little bit was, we've already got a situation where Bosch has kind of wrested control of their docs, and that's already reflected in the FI working group. I was wondering if it might also make sense, and this may be contingent on an adequate audit of the docs repos that are actually there, but like maybe that model would actually just be more efficient for all the docs repos if they went under the ownership of the most closely associated working group. You know, there might be some decisions that we'd have to make or make in conjunction with the working groups. So I at least wanted to, you know, this isn't something that I had drafted as an alternative either, but I at least wanted to float it here for consideration to see what people thought before I also thought about pursuing that avenue and just doing that for the time being for the docs repos.
I mean, in general, I like this idea because if you look who is changing the documentation today, it is the teams, right? So I remember when the space supporter role was added, we also updated the documentation, and from time to time, I also filed some PRs if we see some issues here and there in the documentation. On the other hand, the structure is not like the working groups. It's more, and that is good, it's more developer centric. It's more on the use cases, operators and developers. And services is maybe slightly separated, but so it will be difficult to assign it, and probably most of the documentation has to end up in this CF deployment working group because the other ones do not fit that well, or everything in the interfaces. I don't know. Yeah, some odd decisions are then needed, but in general, I think it's a good idea to not have a separate documentation, like have a separate queue department. That also usually doesn't help.
Yeah, I think another aspect of that, this might even warrant another area within the working groups that have a substantial amount of docs under this model, would be that, you know, at least VMware does have people employed as dedicated technical writers to work on docs. And so I'd expect they should be approvers, at least within those areas in the working groups, if we try that out. But I mean, that seems pretty reasonable. And again, it like gets them more closely involved with the people who are making the changes instead of being kind of an annex. Well, I think one way or another, I'm still due to try to do that audit of the existing docs repos. And once I do that, maybe I'll get a better sense of like, you know, would it make sense in practice to try to split them up across the other working groups? Again, they'd also have to be on board in terms of taking on another little epsilon of responsibility. But if it is looking like a big tangle, then maybe we just go back to having a separate working group, at least for like the core ones. Or maybe those do live in our still to be formed deployments working group.
Yeah, I don't think they live there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that, yeah, I talked to you about this already, Eric, but I like the idea of moving the docs where they're most closely related to the parts of the product that would be changing at the same time, like Stephan said. I don't think it really matters. It really depends on whether you have people in a docs role across the whole thing, actively making large scale changes and editing or not, right? And I don't think we are, because I don't think we are doing massive docs cleanup work or like retooling or re-editing. And we're adding little things in various places, but like you'd also want to add the docs when you're there. So like, I think we're mature enough that we don't need a dedicated docs area.
I think so long as there is ownership, that's absolutely fine. It's when things aren't owned that the problems arise. But yeah, go with that suggestion then, I would say.
Cool. All right. Well, sign me up for an action item for next week, and I'll keep trying to move this forward.
Okay, cool. So the next thing that we've got on the agenda is holiday break. Take it away.
Holiday break, man. I mean, I didn't add this, but VMware has the week off between Christmas and New Year, so I suspect no one's going to be here between that week. So I assume we at least want to cancel that one. Do we want to cancel any others? Is the question, right?
Exactly. So the 28th is definitely not going to be happening. But around that, what are people doing?
can make the two around it personally.
You can or can't, David?
I can.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, there's a screaming running child who's very excited.
That's okay.
Who also is interested in your baby, Ruben. She was pointing at your baby a lot and saying there's a baby right there.
He doesn't self-identify as a baby anymore. He's big now. He can walk. And he has a hammer. So.
I'll be around apart from the 28th.
Same here.
I'm very likely available also on the first week of January, but I haven't finally decided because there is one public holiday in Germany, the 6th of January. So I will take off the Friday definitely, but yeah, it depends a bit on whether we can travel or not.
I don't know yet either. Might be off in that week, but yeah, that doesn't mean we shouldn't run a TOC meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
seems to be at least some people are there. So
when you say that week, the week of January or the week of December? Yeah. Okay.
January.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe there's consensus that we just cancel December 28th. I think that's the Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's at least do that, and we can coordinate offline for the other ones.
Yep, cool. That's all good with me. No. So that brings us on to any other business.
Hey everyone, I'll go. Just a reminder that we require quotes from everybody except Lee on the article that I had shared last week. So Eric, since you were missing just a little bit of context, there's a sort of blog post or rather byline article about the community and the TOC and what we're trying to do in the form of a retrospective of 2021. And I requested all the TOC members to provide like a quotation. So you should have received a notification, but I bet it's hidden in like a ton of emails. So I can follow up with like a link to the doc on Slack.
Oh, I think I've got it up. Thanks, Rob. Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, just that if the other folks can take some time out to fill that, it'll be super useful.
Ram, is there a date when you're looking to have at least a draft contribution to that submitted by?
I
assume we want to do it before the end of 2021.
Absolutely. So by the 10th of, so the Friday of this week, so okay. That's the 10th of December, that'd be really useful.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Cool. So I'm going to put that as an action as well for everybody.
Thanks, Lee.
Has anyone got anything else? Okay. So just to go over the actions that we've gained from this meeting, I'm to remove the meta section from the RFC template and clarify the numbering. We've got a TOC review of added initial GitHub org management automation, a TOC to review add missing components for logging and metric repos to ARP working group, Eric to update the docs proposal. Feel free to reword that in a slightly more sane way if you wish. And the TOC to provide quotes for the byline article. Is there anything I've missed? No? Cool. Well, I think we've got to the end of today's session then. All right. Thank you very much all, and we'll be catching up async throughout the week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.